How's it going, everybody? Back here with the third installment in the series on improving chess tactics. Here again in this series, we're just sort of going up the rating spectrum, solving tactics problems at these various sort of rating intervals on chess.com's tactics trainer, and just sort of talking through, sort of how to go about approaching the individual problems and approaching tactics in general. Again, as I said in other videos, my biggest recommendations would be to solve these for accuracy and not for speed. Again, I would suggest setting yourself a time limit, at minimum something like 5 minutes. If you're not sure of what the answer is, make yourself sit there for 5 minutes and look at it. I think you're going to get, just from my own experience, you're going to get a lot more out of these by doing that rather than taking like 30 seconds to like a minute. And you'll know that you're sort of on the right track when, if you're being sufficiently challenged at a given rating level, you'll probably be solving about 60 to 70% correctly in a given session. Yeah, I mean, you want to get as many as you can correct, but yeah, I mean, just realistically, that's sort of been my experience. My personal high on the tactics trainer is somewhere around 2,700. So as we go up the rating spectrum, I do expect to be getting more correct, sort of at the rating levels we're doing now, and then I expect to be missing more as we go up. So again, today's video, we're looking at the 14 to 1600 range. And with all that by way of introduction, let's just jump right into it. All right, so we have, let's see, looks like we're down in exchange, a knight for a rook. Yeah, so the tactical kind of nexus of the two armies seems to be right around this general area, so I'm kind of looking for possibilities here. I do see that these two guys are lined up as well. And one kind of thought I have is kind of a removing the defender idea, where if I play rook takes f3, then the queen's defender is no longer there, and I would be threatening to play queen takes d2. For instance, if white played bishop takes f3. But after playing rook takes f3, my rook is attacked by the bishop. If they try to solve the problem of that my queen's attack on their queen by playing queen takes f4, then I would have rook takes f4, and in that whole sequence, I would basically just be winning a knight, and that looks pretty decent. It looks like, even though we're down in exchange, we have two pawns for it, so material looks pretty even. So winning a piece, which is what that sequence would do, seems to be good. Let's just check to see if this makes sense. Again, rook takes f3, queen takes f4, I think is the most probable reply, and then rook takes f4. I don't see a way for black to get around, or for white to get around that, so yeah, let's go for it. All right, good stuff. That one was 1495, it looks like. All right, so here it looks like black has an extra pawn. But we might be able to put black's king in a mating net. So it's very short on squares at the current time. None of the squares that I've highlighted are squares that black king can go to. So my thought is to play g4 and take this square away too, after which we would be threatening f6, or sorry, f3 mate. So let's see if there's a way for black to get around that. Yeah, I'm not really seeing one. I don't really see anything their pawns can do. The rook is definitely not doing anything. They don't have any checks against us. Let's go for this. Okay, that one was 1582. Alright, so what do we have here? Okay, so it looks like we got... We're down a rook. It looks like black just took a rook on g8. Was that correct? Yeah, they took a rook on g8. So we're down a rook. I immediately look at this check in the spirit of checks, captures, and threats. Queen to e1 check. It would be mate if not for rook to f1. There is bishop to d4 when they have a block, like bishop to e3. We could play bishop takes e3 check. I think at that point they could play king h1. We could take with check. They would take back. And then we would take, we would take their queen. So that's kind of messy. In the resulting position, I think we'd be up a bishop. I do apologize. Let me try this again. Queen e1 check, rook f1, bishop to d4 check. Let's say bishop to e3, bishop takes e3, bishop takes e3 check. It would be hitting both the king and the queen, but our queen is also under attack. If they take our bishop, we'll take back. And that should be winning. Yes. And if they move their king, say king to h1, then I believe we can play rook takes f1 check. Rook takes f1 is forced. Bishop takes g5. After which we'll have a knight, bishop, and rook against a knight, and there'll be a rook on f1. So we should be up a piece. I believe that that's good. Let's go for it. And then, yeah. So, okay, so it looks like that was playing out. Okay, good stuff. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so this king, I immediately notice, looks short on squares. But the most obvious sort of g6 just runs into f takes g6. So that doesn't look to be doing much, but d3, this pawn is pinned, so it can't capture. d3, if the rook moves, say, I don't know, rook f2, we could take here, and we would be threatening to queen. If they go back to defend, we could go here, still be threatening to queen. That looks pretty good. Let's just check this again. d3, again, the pawn can't capture because of the pin. The rook moves somewhere. Let's say rook g2. Capture, threatening to queen. They could also get behind this way. But again, in that situation, if we queen here and they capture us, then we can capture them. And the same thing, if they go this way, we've got this. Okay, that looks like it works. And if this, again, let's just double check. They have this check here. we could just attack it and both be threatening their rook and queening. So that doesn't seem to be problematic. Again, this way, still threatening to queen. Yeah, this looks good. Yeah, same thing that I mentioned sort of in the original variation here. We can queen if they take it. We can just take the rook. Yeah. Here, again, just threaten their rook here and threaten this rook. They'll most likely take our queen. We'll take their rook. We'll be up a rook. Yeah. Okay. All right, that one was 1469. All right. So I immediately notice the knight is taking these squares away from the king, which possibly is interesting. Yeah, that is definitely interesting, in fact. So queen takes e6 check. The king has nowhere to go. They can block or they can capture. Queen takes e6 check. If they capture, we have bishop g6, which is mate. Queen takes e6 check. If they block, then queen takes e7 is mate. So yeah, that looks to be good. All right, that one was 1573. So yeah, I don't think I mentioned this at the outset, but again, you know, just to sort of add to, you know, your experience, I guess, in watching the video or things of that nature, you might find it's a good idea to go ahead and pause, you know, when the new problem comes up, give yourself a chance to solve it before I go over it. You know, you might find that helpful. It's not necessary, but you know, it's something some people might find helpful. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Make sure I was explicit about that. Okay, so we have a king that is somewhat precariously placed. So queen to e3 hitting here. The only square they would have is g7. I mean, my immediate thought, of course, is queen g5, but then they have knight to g6, which looks pretty solidly placed and kind of annoying. Yeah, so that might not be the way to go, but this might be decent. Yeah, I think this is the way to go. Queen takes h4. Again, only squares g7 when we have queen h7, which with the pawn taking this square away is checkmate. Let's just double check that. Queen takes h4. Queen has these squares for the king. The bishop has these squares, so only g7 is where the king can go. And then queen h7. Yeah, that should be good. 1469 on that one. Alright, looks like we have an even material situation. Immediately, eye is drawn to the queen, but there's a recapture there. But after that, this is hanging. So that actually might do it. So queen takes queen takes a4. Again, even material. Knight takes a4. Rook takes d3. That looks to be pretty good. Yeah, the question might then arise, like, why not just take on d3 immediately? my concern is that the queen, their pieces are active over here. They can come in here. This bishop is taking this away. They would be threatening checkmate. So just getting rid of this queen and any possible attacks first before taking the bishop seems like the way to go. Yeah, let's go for it. Okay, 1430. Okay, this seems like another one. No, maybe not. Okay, so rook h3 hitting the king. The king has to go to g7 when we have bishop takes d4 check. And then that discovers an attack here on the loose rook. And that should be good. I mean, I initially looked at this move, trying to box the king in, but that just hangs the rook. So yeah, I think this is the way to go. So let's go for this. Okay. All right, so yeah, whenever you have a rook that is got like the G file or the B file against the king, if you have chances to sort of exploit that, it's definitely something worth looking into, and this is an example of that. So the solution here is rook takes h7 check, just sacrificing the rook. King takes h7 with the idea that we have queen h3, and because this rook takes away the G file, black has no other way to put anything on the H file. That's going to be checkmate. All right. So it looks like we're down a piece for a pawn in this scenario. So I'm immediately just looking at stuff like rook takes e6. If f takes e6, rook to g7, but rook to f7. That's a cool. Okay, so I think this is it. We'll see. But this is my intuition. Rook takes e6, f takes e6, rook to g7, rook to f7, rook takes f7, king takes f7, then there's queen h7 skewering the queen behind it. And the resulting position, white is up a queen against a rook. And yeah, that looks good. So let's see if this works. Rook takes. That's all assuming f takes. If king takes, what does white have there? Queen takes. Maybe that's not forcing enough. Rook takes, king takes. Queen to f5 checks. The king can go to e7 or d6. If to d6. If to d6, I think. Queen to f6. the king would be able to go to d7 or d5. If to d5, I think bishop e4, king. Ooh, wow. King to c4. King to c4, and then bishop to c6, with the rook hitting the king on c4, the bishop taking away b5 and d5. Yeah. Not following that all the way to a checkmate, but black's king is essentially going to end up on, I think, just at the end of that sequence on d3, and that can't be good. So we'll say that's pretty bad for black. And after queen f6, what we have on the board here, if king to e7, or sorry, king to d7, the thought there is bishop to f5 check. Looks like the only square would be king to king to e8. Rook to d4 check. And then they can still block with their bishop. All right, let's run through this again. Rook takes e6 check. The line that I showed initially, I'm pretty sure works. So let's run through that. F takes e6. Whoops. Rook takes e6. F takes e6. Rook to g7. Rook to f7. Rook takes g7. King takes g7. Queen h7 check. King moves, and we're skewering this queen. Rook takes. King takes. King takes. Could also just go queen to e4 check. Although queen e5 there. So yeah, rook takes, king takes, queen f5 check. Looks to be most probable. Let's say king back to e7. Let's say rook to e4 check, forcing the king to come here. I mean, the king's in a world of hurt, but wow. So yeah, with the queen on f5, the rook on e4, the black king on d6. Is there anything else that looks remotely plausible? I don't think so. Rook takes, king takes, whoa, jeez. Rook takes, king takes, queen, f5 check. King to e7. I think rook d5, or rook e4 check. King to d6. Queen f6 check. Yeah, I'm not quite seeing this to the end, but I definitely have the intuition that this is the right way to go. So yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, and they went the way that I thought. Alright, let's check this with the analysis, because it was kind of shaky with the continuation after this. Rookie. Okay, so I kept going down this road of rook, or queen f5, so they're saying rook e4 check. Rook e4 check, and then queen e5 is the best. Yeah, so that's no good. So king f6, queen c3 check, king g6, rook e6 double check, king h5, rook takes, king takes, queen f6, king h5, queen f5. Okay, so there's a mate in 7 here. King h6, queen h7, king g5, queen g7, king h5. Yeah, this is like super complicated. King h6, queen h4 check, king g7, queen g5. So eventually you get him back in the corner here. Okay, there you go. Yeah, it's convoluted, but got there. Yeah, I had just the intuition that they were gonna go that other way, this way. While it seemed like it was winning, I mean, the king was out in the middle with the queen and rook bearing down. I definitely wasn't seeing that like mate in 14 or whatever it was. All right, so that one was 1599. All right, so looks like we have an even material situation. Okay, so I am noticing that rook e1 check, or rook e1 check. If king takes, there's bishop takes f2 check, discovering an attack on this loose queen, when we would be winning a pawn and a queen for a bishop and a rook, which would definitely be something we would go for. And rook d1 check, the only other possible move, or rook e1 check, the only other possible move is knight takes e1 when there's queen takes f2, which is mates. So yeah, I think this is a rook e1 check, king takes e1, bishop takes f2 check, discovers an attack on the queen. We would be winning a pawn and a queen for a bishop and a rook. That's good. And then once again, rook e1 check, knight takes e1, queen takes f2 as mates. All right, yeah, let's go for this. Okay. All right, so we're down a piece. I do notice though that, I do notice that this pawn is doing a great job at restricting the king, which leads me to a move like queen takes f6 when if g takes f6, rook g8 would be checkmate. That's a really nice queen sacrifice. They don't have to take it. If they don't take it, let's just say we win a knight, we would be up 2 pawns in that case, and that should be good as well. So yeah, let's go for it. I didn't factor this in. Okay, so my first intuition is to take here, they recapture. We take here, and again, we should be up 2 pawns, 5. Because otherwise, if we just straight take their queen, they take ours, and they're up a rook. So yeah, this has to be the way to go. Okay. Alright, so it looks like we're down a piece, but Black's king is exposed. This bishop is taking away this square. This bishop is pinning this knight, which suggests queen to f5 check. The knight can't capture us. The king can't move anywhere. Looks like that is just checkmate. Alright. Alright, I think a couple more here. We'll sort of close this one out. Okay. So checks and captures, queen c1 check. It's like, I mean, they can block with their rook on d1, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. King h2, queen to f4 check. If they block with g3, then we have queen takes g2, which is mating. If queen c1 check, king h2, queen f4, and king back, either h1 or g1, then rook e1 is checkmate. So yeah, let's go for that. Oh man, yeah, the queen is totally got that. Whoops. Yeah, I did that one too quickly for sure. Wow. So that is just, wow, let me just back that up really quick. So yeah, that has got to be this. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great example of just being sloppy and just going too quickly. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Definitely a good example of what not to do there. Yeah. Wow. That's super sloppy. Okay. Anyway, let's shake that one off. Okay, so I think I mentioned this theme in the last video, or maybe it was the first video. But we have this knight e7 check when king h8 is forced, and then there's queen takes h7, and king takes h7, accepting the sacrifice is force. When there's rook h4 check, rook h5, rook takes h5, and with the knight covering these squares, that's going to be checkmate. Let's make sure that the queen's not going to come up somewhere and capture me out of nowhere and be a little bit, let's be a little bit more accurate. Yeah, this looks good. Okay. Okay, so good session, all, you know, outside of that one sort of silly just mental lapse there right at the end. Yeah, so good example of sort of the problems you see at this level. I hope this kind of modeling for you guys that are sort of at this level, you know, in your tactical practice and in solving. I hope this kind of modeling was instructive for you. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments about, you know, issues you're running into at this level, anything like that. And otherwise, I'll be looking forward to making the next video in the series here soon, and we'll see you guys then. Thanks a lot.